The arrival of the small town of Greystone was quiet that morning. A cold wind moved through the empty streets, carrying dry leaves across the cracked road. Most people were still inside their houses, drinking tea or watching the news. It was the kind of morning where nothing strange ever happened. But today was not going to be like any other day. Ethan Carter stood at his front door, holding a white envelope in his hands. It had no stamp, no sender, only his name written in bold black letters. The handwriting was perfect, like it was printed by a machine. He tore it open, his fingers shaking a little without knowing why. Inside, there was only one sentence. "You have been assigned an alien companion by the government." Ethan read it twice, thinking it had to be a joke. It didn't make sense. The government never sent letters like this, and certainly not about aliens. His first thought was maybe it was a prank from his friend Mason. But Mason could barely spell his own name. This letter was too perfect, too serious. Down the street, an old woman named Mrs. Grayson was standing at her gate. She had a similar letter in her hand. Her eyes were wide, and her lips kept moving, like she was praying. One by one, more people came out of their houses, all holding the same white envelope. Everyone was looking around, whispering, trying to understand. Then they heard it, a low rumble in the distance, deep and heavy, not like a car or a truck. It was something slower, heavier. The ground seemed to shake under their feet. Ethan's heart started to beat faster. From the far end of the road, they saw them, dark green military trucks, big and heavy, rolling into the town. Each one had a large metal crate chained to the back. The crates were tall, taller than a man, with thick steel bars across the front. Steam hissed from the sides like the air inside was cold. The trucks stopped one by one in front of the houses. Soldiers in black armor stepped down, their faces hidden behind dark visors. They moved with perfect order, unlocking the crates. Ethan stood frozen as a soldier walked to his door. The man didn't speak, didn't look at him. He simply tapped the crate with a metal rod. The front of the crate opened with a loud hiss. From inside, a figure stepped out. She was tall, with skin that shimmered faint silver under the sunlight. Her eyes were bright, almost glowing. She wore no helmet, no armor, just a long dark suit that looked too thin for the cold. But she didn't shiver. She looked at Ethan and smiled. "Hello, Ethan," she said softly. Her voice was calm, warm, like she already knew him. Ethan's mouth went dry. "How do you know my name?" he asked. She tilted her head slightly, still smiling. "I've always known," she said. Before Ethan could speak again, the soldier handed him a black folder. Inside were 3 pages of printed rules. The first rule was simple: you must keep your alien companion with you at all times. The second rule: do not harm your companion or you will be punished. The third rule made Ethan's stomach twist. It said, never be alone with your companion after midnight. He looked at the alien again. She stood perfectly still, her silver eyes watching him like she could see inside his head. Her smile never faded. Ethan felt something strange, not fear exactly, but not comfort either. It was like standing too close to a storm before it breaks. Around the neighborhood, other crates were opening. Some aliens were small and quiet. Some were huge, with dark armor-like skin. One man's alien let out a deep growl that made everyone step back. A child began to cry, hiding behind her mother. No one knew why this was happening. The soldiers gave no answers. They only delivered the companions, handed over the rules, and left. The street was silent again, except for the sound of the crates being pulled back onto the trucks. Ethan noticed the soldiers didn't take the crates with them. They left them behind, empty. Maybe for later use, the thought made him uneasy. His alien took one step closer. "You can call me Lyra," she said, her voice still soft. Ethan nodded slowly. "What are you?" he asked. She smiled wider, almost like she enjoyed the question. "I'm your companion," she said. "I'm here to help you." But the way she said it made him wonder if help was the right word. From the corner of his eye, Ethan saw Mrs. Grayson's alien. It was taller than her roof, with long arms that bent the wrong way. It just stood there, staring at her door. Ethan felt a cold shiver move down his back. Lyra turned her head toward the sky. For a moment, her smile faded, replaced by something darker. Then it came back. She looked at Ethan like nothing had happened. "I think we are going to have an interesting time together," she said. And somewhere deep inside, Ethan knew she was right. Learning the rules. Ethan didn't sleep that first night. Every sound outside felt louder than it should. Every creak in the walls made his heart jump. Lyra sat in the living room the whole time, not moving. She didn't eat, didn't drink, didn't even blink much. Sometimes she looked at him like she was studying a strange animal. In the morning, the entire town was called to the community hall. The hall was full, every seat taken. Aliens stood beside their assigned humans. Some towered over the crowd. Others looked almost human, except for small details: skin too smooth, eyes too large, fingers too long. The air was heavy with silence. Even the children didn't make a sound. At the front, a tall government officer in a gray coat stepped onto the stage. His hair was sharp and neat, his eyes cold. "My name is Director Hallstrom," he said. "I will explain the rules of the companion program." He spoke in a clear, flat voice, like he was reading from a script. Rule 1. You must keep your companion within sight at all times. Rule 2. Do not harm your companion, or you will face immediate removal from the program. Rule 3. Never be alone with your companion after midnight. Rule 4. Do not ask your companion about their home world. Rule 5. Do not leave Greystone without government permission. No one raised their hand to ask why. Maybe they were afraid of the answer. Maybe they knew there wouldn't be one. Hallstrom looked over the crowd. "Your companions are here to learn about you, to help you, and to protect you," he said. "You will treat them with respect, and you will follow the rules." His voice dropped slightly. "Breaking the rules will not be forgiven." Then the officer stepped aside. A woman in a black suit took his place. She carried a small black box in her hands. She opened it, revealing thin silver devices that looked like bracelets. "These are monitors," she said. "They will track your location, your health, and your cooperation, one by one." Humans were called forward to have the bracelets locked around their wrists. When Ethan's turn came, the metal was cold against his skin. The clasp clicked shut, no visible way to open it. Lyra watched quietly, her silver eyes never leaving his face. As they walked back to their seats, Ethan noticed something strange. Whenever an alien passed another alien, they would pause. Their eyes would lock for just a moment. No words were spoken, but something passed between them, something humans couldn't hear. After the meeting ended, people slowly returned to their homes. The streets felt different now, quieter, heavier. Even the air seemed to carry a weight. On the way back, Ethan tried asking Lyra questions. "What happens after midnight?" he said. She gave him that same calm smile. "It's not safe for you to know yet," she replied. "What's your home like?" Her smile faded for a split second. "I don't live there anymore," she said. That night, Ethan sat at his kitchen table while Lyra stood by the window. She seemed to be listening for something far away. Once, he saw her tilt her head like she heard a voice. Then she whispered in a language he couldn't understand. When he asked her what she said, she just turned back to him. "Nothing important," she answered. Later, Ethan's neighbor Mason knocked on the door. He looked pale, his eyes darting around like someone was following him. "Man, I think my alien is reading my mind," Mason whispered. Ethan glanced at Lyra. She was still at the window, her back to them. "Are they allowed to do that?" Mason asked. Ethan didn't answer, because he wasn't sure if Lyra could hear them, even from across the room. When Mason left, Lyra spoke for the first time in hours. "Your friend is right," she said without turning around. "We can read thoughts, but only when we choose." Ethan's chest tightened. "Can you read mine?" he asked. She turned and smiled again. "I already have," she said, that night. Ethan tried to sleep, but his mind kept replaying her words. "I already have." The sentence felt like a shadow in his head. He didn't know what she saw, or what she thought about it. At exactly 11:59 p.m., Lyra came to his bedroom door. "Ethan," she said softly, "I need you to stay in your room until morning." Before he could ask why, she closed the door and locked it from the outside. From his bed, Ethan could hear faint noises, footsteps, voices, maybe even something moving on the roof. He thought about opening the window and climbing out. But something in Lyra's voice earlier kept him still. When the clock hit midnight, the voices stopped. The silence that followed was worse. It felt like the whole town was holding its breath. Ethan lay awake until the first light of morning. When Lyra unlocked his door, she didn't explain, she just smiled, as if nothing strange had happened at all. And Ethan realized something. In this new life, the things he didn't know were far more dangerous than the things he did. Signs of trouble. The days after the meeting felt different. People still went to work, still opened their shops, still walked their dogs. But the streets no longer had normal conversations. Everyone spoke in short sentences, watching their companions. Out of the corner of their eyes, Ethan noticed that Lyra was quiet most of the time. But when she did speak, it was almost always a question. "What scares you the most, Ethan? What would you do if you had to choose between two lives? Do you trust me?" Her voice was gentle, but the questions made him uneasy. One afternoon, Ethan saw Mason across the street. Mason's alien, a thin, gray-skinned figure with long black eyes, walked a step behind him. The alien's head twitched every few seconds, like it was hearing a distant sound. When Mason saw Ethan, he didn't wave, didn't smile. He just kept walking, his shoulders tense. It was the first time Ethan realized that even friends might not feel safe talking anymore. At night, Lyra kept looking at the sky, not the moon, not the stars, but something beyond them. Her eyes would follow a point no one else could see. One night, Ethan asked what she was looking at. She answered without turning her head. "Waiting," she said. "For what?" "You'll find out," she replied, and smiled. Strange things began to happen in Greystone. First, a young man named Colin stopped showing up for work. His companion, a tall, shadow-skinned alien with glowing blue veins, was seen walking alone near the forest. When the police searched Colin's house, they found his shoes still by the door, his wallet on the table, but no sign of him. The alien refused to answer any questions. The next day, both the alien and the police officer who questioned it were gone. The government said nothing. The official explanation was relocation, but nobody believed it. People whispered at night, behind locked doors. Ethan started noticing fewer and fewer faces on the street. Each time someone disappeared, their house would go dark. No for sale sign, no moving truck, just darkness. One evening, while walking back from the store, Ethan saw Lyra standing perfectly still on the sidewalk. Her eyes were fixed on something at the end of the street. He followed her gaze and saw 3 other aliens. They were not with their humans. They stood close together, speaking in their strange language. When they noticed Ethan looking, they stopped. All 3 turned their heads toward him at the same time. Their eyes caught the light, glowing faintly. Ethan's chest tightened. Lyra stepped in front of him, blocking his view. "Don't," she said quietly. "Don't what?" Ethan asked. "Don't let them see fear." That night, the air felt heavy. Ethan stayed by his window, watching the street. Around midnight, he saw a flicker of light in the forest. It was small at first, like a campfire. Then it grew brighter. Lyra appeared in the doorway without a sound. "You shouldn't be watching that," she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharper than he had ever seen. She closed the curtains and sat in the dark with him. Neither of them spoke for the rest of the night. The next morning, news spread fast. Mrs. Grayson, the old woman from across the street, was gone. Her alien was seen leaving town at dawn, walking into the forest. 2 soldiers followed, but they didn't return. No one asked questions in public anymore, but in whispers. The town agreed on one thing: whatever was happening, it was getting closer. Later that day, Lyra spoke without looking at him. "There will come a time soon when you have to make a choice," she said. "What choice?" Ethan asked. She smiled faintly. "Between believing the truth or believing what they want you to hear." "Who is they?" But Lyra didn't answer. She was already looking at the sky again, waiting for something only she could see. The midnight incident. The night began quiet, too quiet. Even the wind felt like it was holding its breath. Ethan sat on the couch pretending to read, but his eyes kept drifting to Lyra. She stood by the door, still as a statue. Her silver eyes didn't blink. Her head tilted like she was listening to something far away. At 11:50 p.m., she finally moved. She walked to the window and pulled the curtain back just enough to peek outside. Her smile was gone. Ethan opened his mouth to ask what she was looking at, but she raised a finger to her lips. "Not now," she whispered. He could feel his heart beating in his throat. Something about her tone made him stay silent. Outside, the streetlights flickered. First one, then another, until the whole block was dark. A faint hum filled the air, low and deep, almost like a heartbeat. Ethan had never heard anything like it before. Lyra turned to him, her face half in shadow. "Stay inside," she said, but before he could answer, she opened the door and stepped out into the cold. Ethan's chest tightened. He hesitated for only a moment before grabbing his jacket and following her. The night air was heavy. Every step crunched against the frozen ground, but somehow the sound felt swallowed. Lyra moved quickly, heading toward the end of the street. When Ethan caught up, he froze. 3 other aliens were waiting there, standing in a half circle. Their shapes were dark against the moonlight. One was tall and thin with 4 arms. Another was short but wide, with skin like stone. The third had no visible mouth, only glowing slits where eyes should be. They didn't speak in words Ethan could understand, but their voices were there, inside his head, like distant whispers. Lyra replied in the same strange language, her tone sharp, urgent. The stone-skinned alien stepped closer and handed her something small. It glowed faintly blue in the dark, pulsing like it was alive. Lyra tucked it into her jacket. Ethan took a step forward. "What is that?" he demanded. All 4 aliens turned to look at him at the same time. Their eyes glinted in the moonlight. Lyra's expression softened, but her voice stayed firm. "Go back to your house, Ethan." "No," he said. "Tell me what's going on." She paused, then smiled again. "Not tonight," she replied. Her tone was almost playful, but something in her gaze warned him to stop asking. From the corner of his vision, Ethan saw movement. Across the street, Mason's alien was standing in the shadows watching. Its long black eyes reflected the faint blue glow from Lyra's jacket. When it realized Ethan had noticed, it slipped away into the darkness without a sound. The hum in the air grew louder. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. The ground, the sky, even inside his chest. Suddenly, all the aliens turned their heads toward the forest. Something flickered between the trees. A soft light, like the one Lyra had taken, but larger. It pulsed once, twice, and then faded, without another word. The 3 strangers walked away toward the woods. Lyra stayed still for a moment, then looked at Ethan. "Go home," she said again, more quietly this time. He wanted to push, to demand answers, but the cold in her voice froze him in place. By the time he got back to his door, the streetlights flickered back on. The hum faded. Lyra entered the house a few minutes later. She locked the door, then sat in the chair opposite him. She didn't explain. She didn't need to. The silence between them was louder than any words. The next morning, Ethan stepped outside and saw 2 houses on the street completely empty. No lights, no cars, no signs of life. The people who lived there, gone. Only their companions remained, standing still on the front steps like statues. And for the first time, Ethan wondered if the Midnight Rule wasn't about protecting the humans. Maybe it was about protecting the companions. The government's secret. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about the midnight meeting. The way Lyra had taken that glowing object, the way other aliens had stared at him, and the houses that went dark without a sound, the rules from the black folder, kept replaying in his head, especially the one about midnight. He felt like a thread had been pulled, and if he kept pulling, everything would come undone. The next day, Ethan decided to follow his gut. If the government wasn't going to give answers, he would find them himself. It started small. A few quiet questions to people he trusted, if trust still meant anything in Greystone. Mason told him the community hall's second floor was off limits to the public. Why? Ethan asked. Mason just shook his head. Because people who go up there don't come back. That night, Ethan waited until Lyra was distracted. She was in the backyard, staring at the sky again. He slipped out the front door, his heart pounding. The streets were nearly empty, only a few companions walking without. They're humans. They didn't even turn their heads as he passed. But he could feel their eyes on his back. The community hall loomed ahead, dark except for a faint light in one upstairs window. The front door was locked. Ethan circled to the side and found a narrow window left open. He climbed through and landed in a storage room. Dust floated in the air. The smell of paper and metal filled his nose. Upstairs, the light came from an office. Ethan crept toward it, careful to avoid the loose boards that creaked. Inside, rows of filing cabinets lined the walls. A single desk lamp lit up a stack of folders marked classified. He opened the first one and froze. The papers were reports, not about Greystone, but about other towns. Each file was the same: town name, population size, date of companion, program start, and a final page marked program terminated. Under population remaining, the number was always 0. One file had photos, aerial shots of empty streets, abandoned houses, no signs of life. Another had a map with red X's marking towns that no longer existed. Ethan felt his hands go cold. Greystone wasn't the first. And if the pattern continued, they wouldn't be the last. He grabbed a smaller file and flipped it open. This one had interviews, short transcripts of conversations between humans and their companions. Some ended with the words, "Subject removed from program." The reason was never written. One note caught his eye. "Test complete. Subject chosen by companion for extraction." Before he could read more, a shadow fell across the doorway. Ethan's heart jumped. Lyra was standing there, her silver eyes glinting in the dim light. She didn't look angry, but she didn't look pleased either. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "How did you find me?" Ethan asked. "I always know where you are," she replied. She walked into the room, her gaze moving over the open folders. Her smile returned, but it didn't reach her eyes. "So," she said, "you've seen the truth." Ethan swallowed. "What does extraction mean?" Lyra closed the folder gently. "It means your time is up," she said, almost like she was explaining the weather. Before Ethan could speak, she stepped closer. "But I haven't chosen you," she added softly. Her voice was almost kind. "That means you still have time if you stop asking questions." Ethan's pulse was racing. He didn't know if that was a promise or a threat. Lyra took his arm and led him out of the building without looking back. As they walked home, Ethan noticed something strange. The upstairs window where he'd seen the light was now dark, and from somewhere deep in the night, that low humming sound began again. He didn't sleep at all, because now he knew the companion program wasn't about learning or helping. It was a countdown, and the clock was already ticking for Greystone. Asterisk the choice. 3 days passed after the night in the community hall. Ethan said nothing to Lyra about the files, but the knowledge burned in his mind. Every smile she gave him felt like it had a hidden meaning now. Every glance from the other companions felt sharper, heavier. On the 4th day, an announcement came. The loudspeakers in the streets crackled to life. "Final evaluation begins at sunset." The voice said, calm and cold, "All residents are to remain in their homes with their companions. No other details, no explanation. Lyra didn't seem surprised. She stood by the window again, her silver eyes fixed on the horizon. When Ethan asked what was happening, she turned to him. "It's the last part of the program," she said. "Tonight, one human and one companion will be sent away." Her voice was soft, but her words felt like a blade. "Sent away where?" Ethan asked. She didn't answer as the sun dipped lower. The air in Greystone seemed to grow thicker. Shadows stretched long across the empty streets. From somewhere far off, the low hum began again. It vibrated in Ethan's chest like his own heartbeat was sinking to it. At 9 p.m., Lyra finally stepped away from the window. "It's time," she said. "Time for what?" "For you to decide." She led him out the back door, through the narrow alleys between houses. They didn't speak. The streets were too quiet. Not even the wind moved. Every window they passed was dark. Ethan knew people were inside, but it felt like the whole town had been abandoned. They reached the edge of the forest, through the trees. Ethan saw it, a shape hidden under heavy camouflage netting. It was a ship, sleek and black, with faint blue lines glowing along its surface. The air around it seemed to hum, the sound stronger here. Lyra stopped and faced him. "The government is lying to you," she said. "They're not protecting you, they're selling you." Ethan felt his stomach twist. "Selling to who?" "To those who built the program," she said. "Not all of us serve them willingly." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I can get you out," she said. "But if you come with me, you can't ever go back." Ethan's head spun. "What happens if I stay?" Lyra looked at him for a long moment. "They will take you anyway, just not in the way you'd choose." In the distance, movement flickered between the trees. Ethan saw shapes, dark figures, maybe soldiers, maybe something else. Lyra glanced over her shoulder. "They're coming," she said. "You have to choose now." His mind raced. He didn't know if she was telling the truth. He didn't know if the ship was an escape or a trap, but the look in her eyes was different tonight. Not just a smile, not just the calm mask. There was urgency, and maybe fear. The humming grew louder. The trees behind them began to shake. Blue light flickered between the trunks. Lyra reached out her hand. "Ethan," she said. "It's them or me." He stared at her hand. The forest felt like it was closing in. The air vibrated like the whole world was holding its breath. And then, a shadow moved behind her, tall, armored, faceless. Ethan didn't know if it was a soldier or something worse, but its hand was already reaching for her. The escape or the trap? The figure behind Lyra moved like a shadow come to life. Its armor was black and smooth, no seams, no edges. A faint red glow leaked from the narrow slit where its eyes should be. It reached for her without a sound. Ethan's breath caught. Lyra spun fast, her movements sharp and inhuman. She caught the figure's wrist before it touched her. The ground trembled under their feet as the hum in the air spiked. From deeper in the forest, more figures emerged. Some were soldiers in dark armor, others not human at all. Ethan stumbled back, his heart slamming against his ribs. The ship behind them pulsed with blue light, its surface shifting like water. Lyra's eyes locked on his. "Now, Ethan!" she shouted. Her voice was not calm now. It was urgent, almost desperate. He ran toward her, but another figure stepped into his path. Its skin was the same silver as Lyra's, but its face was colder. It didn't speak. It just stared at him, like it was measuring something. Lyra shouted again, "Don't listen to them. They'll tell you I'm lying." The silver-faced stranger tilted its head. "She already has," it said. The voice was in his head, deep and smooth. "She's not your savior, Ethan. She's your delivery." Ethan's pulse roared in his ears. The ground shook harder. Trees swaying like a storm was tearing through. The ship's blue glow spread wider, wrapping the clearing in light. Lyra shoved the armored figure back and reached for him. The silver stranger didn't move. It just watched, calm, patient. The hum became a deep, rising tone that felt like it was pulling at his bones. Lyra's hand was inches from his. The silver stranger extended its own hand from the other side. "Choose," it said in his mind. "If you take hers, you'll never see your world again. If you take mine, you'll learn the truth before it's too late." The light from the ship grew blinding. Shadows spun across the trees like claws, somewhere behind him. He thought he heard Mason's voice shouting his name, but he couldn't turn to look. His vision tunneled, only the two hands in front of him. One warm, one cold, one smiling, one still, both promising something he couldn't prove. The hum reached its peak. The light swallowed the clearing. Ethan's fingers moved, almost on their own. And then everything went white.